Hi everyone, I am trying to add on our guest today, so please give me a moment. Hello,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm really well. How are you?
Good, I'm glad that this worked the first time around. I tried to do it and I couldn't find your username and I redid it, so I'm glad that we're here.
Oh, yes.
um,
Yes, it's interesting trying to figure out the technology. And I've just moved into my office last night, so I feel like it's very vacant in here.
that's okay. I am actually in my closet right now. I have set this up as my at-home work station, so
Brilliant.
well, thank you for joining us, Samantha. I will go ahead and get started and do our introduction and get going. So, I will also be recording this video and reposting it on YouTube. So, we will have replays later. So, this is a weekly Wednesday live that I do, and I am throughout the month of March having women throughout specific areas of business come in and talk. Samantha here is a business coach of women, an author of a soon to be book, which is so exciting, which will be on self care for female entrepreneurs. She's an international speaker. She runs two companies, is a mother of five. Wow. And strives to positively impact girls and women so that they become part of the change needed in the world instead of bystanders and collateral damage, which I love. What a great statement.
Yeah.
You also earned your degree in business as a mature age student and began to help women gain their independence and confidence through running their own business. So, Samantha here is a wonderful person. You are in Australia right now, right?
Yes, yes. I'm
Which
down
is
in
so
Melbourne, so I'm right down the bottom end. There's only one place I could be further away, and that's Tasmania.
oh, wow. Dang. The only one place you could, yeah, you're literally like on the other side of the world right now for me. So, you're a
Literally.
day ahead of me, right?
I am, yes, yes. So it's Thursday morning for me.
And it's Wednesday night for me. I
Yeah.
love that the digital age has brought this about and we can do this. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So let's jump into this interview. So tell us about yourself and how you got started with your Fempire Coaching company.
Well, oh gosh. I never had a straight line to where I am now. And you know how sometimes when you're young and you know what you want to be when you grow up. So I was never that person. I had no idea. So I followed the advice I was given, which was to just do what you like doing. So that led me to explore so many different jobs. Career wise, the first career I had was joining the Navy. So I did, yeah. So I was this service person for 12 years.
Oh,
That was absolutely brilliant. And, that was through my 20s. So that was a really interesting time because, in your 20s, you change so much and you really learn who you're going to be when you grow up. I don't think that happens when you're a teenager. I think that happens.
it does either. I think you're right on that.
Yeah, there's too much other stuff going on in your teens. So I think your 20s is all about exploring who you are as an adult. So I got to do that inside the confines of the confines of the military. And when I left, I left at a really key point in my career, but I was given a decision. I could either go to Iraq for 6 months or I could stay at home with, then I had three children. I was actually on maternity leave at the time. So one of my daughters was just a baby, only a couple of months old. So I realized at that point that as a woman, I have to make these decisions, and it was career or family, and I couldn't mesh both of them. I couldn't bear to leave my girls for 6 whole months. So I decided that my career at that point had to end. Jumped into being a mum, and as much as I love my children, I was never cut from the cloth of stay-at-home mum. My mum did it. I admire her, and I always wanted to be a mum just like her in the way she nurtured and the way she raised me. But I couldn't cope with staying at home. Like, my brain was just desperate for adult conversation and for learning new things and doing all that sort of stuff. So I thought, okay, what am I going to do now? What's next? So I tried being an employee.
Yeah.
And I didn't. And honestly, coming from the military, I was easily employed. I did not have trouble getting work. I had a really good work ethic, and I was really keen to do something and be, and contribute. But, I also had a lot of very strong ideas about the way things could be improved, and that had been nurtured inside the Navy. But when I got out, I found that sometimes managers didn't appreciate that about me.
Yeah.
So I found that I became really frustrated as an employee. So then I went into business ownership, and it was an interesting, another one of those moments where you're sitting in front of two paths and you've got to choose another one. So I sat there and I thought, I'm either going to have to keep quiet about everything that was frustrating me, or I was going to have to stand up and actually do something about it. So that's why I'm like, quit my job, and said to my partner at the time, because I was divorced then, I said to my new partner, he was also complaining about work. I said, right, let's stop, let's do it ourselves. We can do it better.
Yeah.
And that was kind of, a bit of blind optimism, because I didn't know anything about his industry. I just had the faith that I knew enough and I had enough drive that we could do it. So jumped into business ownership, and that was like a really exciting ride, because you get to choose your own adventure when you're a business owner. So I jumped into business, and I knew some things, but I certainly didn't know everything. And that's when I started to educate myself. I started to actively seek out the knowledge to fill the gaps that I had. Mm-hmm. And as I started to do that, I realised that, that sometimes stepping into those classrooms and those training rooms was really quite daunting, because sometimes I was in the room with people much younger than me, and I actually was intimidated because they were so tech savvy, and they were on top of all the technology that sits behind everything we do in business. Mm-hmm. But what I found is that as someone who had that work experience and life experience, I actually had a lot to offer. So I was right in there thinking of ideas, and then I was talking to the people that knew about the technology to implement things. And that's when I fell in love with technology. That's when I started to see things change in business. And that's when other business owners I knew started to ask me, hey, can you come and help me out with my business? Like, I see what you're doing over there. Can you come and help me? So coaching for me kind of started as just helping out other people that asked me to.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. That's like, so you were already seen kind of like as an expert in your field before you even really got that coaching business going.
Yes, because I actually didn't know that coaching was a thing. I was just helping people with their businesses. I didn't know that was an actual thing that you could do.
Wow. So when did you figure out that you would specifically focus on female entrepreneurs then? You just had a lot of people coming to you. When did you make that switch from, okay, I will accept everybody, to, okay, I'm going to have this niche and really follow this path?
Yeah. So what I saw, my 5 children, the first 4 were girls, and no, I did not have 5 so I could have a boy. That wasn't, there was no plan there, I have to say.
Yeah.
But, a lovely surprise and quite a shock to find out I was having a boy, because it's like, after 4 girls, I don't know what to do with a boy.
Yeah.
But I was looking at my daughters, and, and they were teenage girls, and, the 3 oldest ones were. And I was looking at them and kind of feeling a bit afraid for them, because I could see me in them, in that they didn't know what they wanted to do, or they were a little bit afraid to step in the direction that they wanted to go to, because we're raised with these gender biases that you're a girl, this is the path you should go on. Even now, like it baffles me in this age that we're still tackling this problem.
Yes, me too. We're literally 50% of the population, and yet we're a minority group. Like, that blows my mind.
I know. How has this happened? And I realised I'm part of the problem as well, because I raised these girls. And I kind of, and everything that had been embedded into me, I was then passing on to them. And I didn't want that. And so once again, it's that moment where you've got to decide, well, I'm either going to shut up about this or I'm going to do something about it. So this is when I'm like, these aren't the only females in the world. Women need help to step out of the shadows that they're in, because so many women are restricted in what they can do because, and this is in no way trying to put down men, because men are only doing what they've been raised to do.
Yes.
But we've got to tip the scales, and we've got to change the way we're doing this. And in order to do that, you've got to take some kind of action. And I'm all for giving women a voice, but that voice has to be followed by doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're so right about that. I love that perspective, because I very much am. I love idealistic people, but at the same time, they a little bit drive me crazy, because I need some sort of like action tied to these ideals. You know, and where I'm from, a big saying is, well, we'll pray for you. And that drives me crazy, because it's such like a passive thing. And it's like, okay, well, it's really sad for you, but we're not really going to act on it. We're really not going to do anything about it. I can't stand that phrase. So I love this perspective that you have, that you need to act on that, because you're so right that and women need to see that too. Women need to see people and other women stand up and say that this is not okay.
Yes,
like
and then watch them be part of the change.
Yes.
And do you know what? I love idealists, because they give us the perspective that we need, but we also need the action takers. And not everybody can be both. You know, there is a place for all of those different types of people. But for me, it's like, I'm very much the person that if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. That's where I sit. So I'm like, I have to stand up and do something. And so for me, it's like, well, how can I empower women? They're restricted financially, so they need to be independent in their income. The gender pay gap, you know, which, thank you, COVID, that's stretched back out. And it's taking an extraordinary amount of time for us to catch up.
Yes.
So
let's start generating
our own income. Let's start generating our own income.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're kind of talking about obstacles that women have in their business. Do you have a specific instance of an obstacle that you first encountered when you were first starting off in business that you overcame, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, look, one of the obstacles that I've faced quite a bit, because the business that my husband and I started all those years ago, that's I came out of the military, male-dominated industry, and bear in mind, I'm quite comfortable around men. Growing up, I had 3 older brothers, so I spent a lot of time around boys. I had friends. I gravitated to the boys at school just because I liked climbing trees and I liked running and playing in the mud and doing all that. I don't think I ever had a doll when I was little. I wasn't a girl. I just wasn't that girl. So then moving into a male-dominated industry. Now, in the military, they're very, very strict on treating people equally. So opportunities all have to be the same, and the way you speak to people, all of that is very, for want of a better word, regimented, and it's embedded into the culture there. Yeah. However, out into civilian industry, it's not at all. So working working, trying to communicate with people in the automotive industry in particular, it was a bit of a struggle because they don't want to talk to the woman. Well, you know, things, there is progress, but there were so many times when I had to say to people, no, you have to talk to me. You have to deal with me.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of be quite, sometimes almost abrupt about it.
Yeah.
And I even hate that you have to be like that sometimes to get people's attention and to get them to focus on what you're saying.
Right.
Because when you behave like that, it buys into the whole, oh, you know, here we go, she's like that. No, I'm not like that, but I've somehow got to get your attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes that's the only way you will pay attention.
Yeah, you're right. You're 1,000% right. I've seen that being a lawyer, and I've had other lawyer men talk down to me, and until I get back in their face and say something equally as brash or whatever, then they will not back down and will not treat me as an equal. It's very, very frustrating.
It is frustrating because we have to step into a masculine energy, and this is one of the things that I'm trying to fight against, is that is not the only way to do things.
Yes. Yeah.
And just because people aren't approaching things that way doesn't mean that they're wrong. And it certainly doesn't mean that you shouldn't listen to what they've got to say and you shouldn't respect what they're doing.
Right, right. And that's hard when you have to sometimes be abrupt and be a little more in their face to even get their attention.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So how do you overcome that? Do you have like a script in your head that you go through, or have you learned to catch yourself, or how do you go through that process with a man that's not listening to you?
Let's be honest here. It depends on the day. And it depends on the situation, because sometimes that little angry monster in me comes out because I'm like, don't you speak to me like that. Like, I know what I'm talking about. You don't need to speak to anyone else. And I get really frustrated. So sometimes I am a lot more abrupt than what I'd like to be. But no, I don't have a script in my head. However, as I've got older, I have learned to temper myself a little bit. And I think as I've got older, my ability to communicate more effectively has improved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So
yeah.
What is the first piece of advice you would give a woman who wants to start out on her own? What's the best piece of advice you can give her?
The best piece of advice I can give, or when you want to start out on your own, is have a plan. Have a plan. The desire to go out on your own is one thing, but everything that you will face as a business owner can be, to a certain extent, mitigated if you have a plan. And having a plan, and this is where I say to people, just because you have a plan doesn't mean that everything's going to unfold according to that plan. But you do need to create the plan in order to think about things.
Yes, yes. I'm a huge proponent of doing your research and planning.
Yes. Yes.
Where that is so much of what I do. And I think a lot of people think that we go into court all the time, but like, honestly, less than, I think 5% of cases go to court. So most of what we do is plan and try and mitigate the damage that's already been done. So that's great advice, to have a plan.
I think television's probably got a lot to blame for the things that we think really go on, you know, and not only for you as an attorney, but, you know, for people in business, it isn't like it is on television, and it isn't like what you think it is from what you see on social media either.
Yes, that is an excellent point. I have people all the time tell me that, oh, you seem very extroverted and this and that and whatever, but I'm very introverted inside. It's just that I put on this personality on my Instagram of being this persona because that is what I'm trying to sell. That's what I'm trying to make people believe. But yes,
Yeah,
it's absolutely it's an advertisement, honestly, is what
it
it
is.
is. It's not, your everyday is not beautiful and sunny. Sometimes you have days where you cry for 2 hours because you can't believe that someone is paying you like you don't know what you're doing. But, those days get fewer and fewer and you get better
Yes.
and better. And especially if you have that plan in place, then
Yeah.
you can really progress and scale your business, because you really can't scale your business either if you don't have a plan in place. So,
No, you cannot. No. Scaling a business is a whole other beast. And
yes.
something that I've seen happen and I try and warn people against is scaling too quickly, because scaling is, there is so much that has to go into scaling a business, and trying to do that before you're ready can actually cause your business to fall over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's,
Yeah.
like you said, so many things that go into it and so many expenses that go into it, upfront expenses
Yes.
that can't necessarily be recouped. So yes, great.
No, it goes back to what I was saying before, where like my journey to get where I am was not a straight path. It's not a straight path to business success and scaling a business. Overnight success, that doesn't really exist. You just haven't seen the 5 years, the 10 years that have gone into creating that overnight success. And I like to think that enough people have said that now, that people are starting to believe that you can't just create a social media account or, open up yourself a website and think that things are going to magically happen.
Yeah, because they
No, they don't. No, they don't. But on the flip side, I also don't want women to think that they've got to slave away, 24/7. And this is something else that, social media and television have given us this perception that when you start a business, you're going to have to drop everything else in your life. You're going to have to work 24/7 to get it off the ground. It doesn't have to be that hard, because if you've done the work and you've got that plan, yeah.
I love that. So you obviously work with clients that are just starting their business, being entrepreneurs.
They're my favorite.
What fears do you see that they have, and how do you kind of quell those fears and make them feel better about it?
Yeah. So first thing that women need to work on in themselves is their confidence, because everybody I shouldn't say everybody, that's an exaggeration. Most women tiptoe into the room and say, I think I've got an idea. I think this is going to work. But if it doesn't, the humiliation. What will my friends say? My partner doesn't believe in me. There are so many external sources that are keeping people down. Mm-hmm. So the first thing we've got to do is build your confidence. There's a couple of ways to do that, particularly in business. The first one, once again, let's work on that plan. Do the research, and research isn't asking your next door neighbour and their dog what they think of your business idea.
Right.
Unless you're living next door to Bill Gates or something like that, who probably know a thing or two.
Yeah.
Yeah. But doing some proper research, and then you've got to put yourself in spaces where other business women are hanging out, so that they can help you, so that they can give you advice, and most importantly, get that moral support. Mm-hmm. Because too many women are not getting that from their own circle of friends or within their own home.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I experienced that just even starting my legal blog and being a lawyer for 7.5 years. I thought more of my friends and family would be supportive than they have been. And a lot of it is, not really understanding social media or how to support me in the proper way. But it is surprising when, you already feel, even if you do feel like an expert in your field and that you really have got this under control, that starting your own business can totally feel completely different. It's totally new and it's scary. And I will say that I absolutely suffer from imposter syndrome every now and again. I mean, I think that everyone, maybe that's an over exaggeration, but I think that most women feel imposter syndrome at the very beginning, at least, of starting their business because of what you're saying. They don't have that support. And I completely agree that one of the best things you can do is join a group of women, or somehow find a mentor or some other woman in business that, just to get a drink with and commiserate is nice. It doesn't have to be a really, giant group of women that are all about empowering each other. You could just have a friend to talk about business with and just vent. It's always nice.
Yes. Having someone to vent with. And you're right, it doesn't need to be a formal organization. You just need that one person in your corner. We don't need a lot.
Yes, exactly. Just a little bit of confidence. So I definitely want to get into you being in Australia, and I know you've worked with women all over the globe.
Yes.
So how does your marketing strategy, or how do you strategize with women that are in different parts of the world? How is it different working with an American and an Australian or a European person?
Yeah, it's funny because we do think of ourselves as also similar, but we're really not. There are some key differences between all of us growing up and the culture that we're in these different countries. So in Australia, women tend to, and in fact Australians tend to sit back a little bit more and watch what's happening.
Okay.
So we tend to sit there and watch what's going on in the rest of the world before we say, okay, that seems to be working over there, we might try that here.
That makes sense.
So it's a lot more difficult to get people to really get behind new ideas here.
Okay.
Whereas you go to the US and the new ideas are coming from all over the place. So women there are a lot more open to trying things and doing things.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the European market is different again, because the Europeans just seem to be savvy in a whole different way that, the UK and the US and Australia aren't. Because they are very, very different over there in so many different ways. Their governments structure things quite differently to what we do here. So that's another ball game, because sometimes they're like, I can't believe that's the way you have to do things over there.
And that's so crazy. And like you said, I wouldn't have thought that things would be that different. But I love that you've been able to see that in working with so many other women.
Yes, yeah. And even in the past couple of years, dealing with the different lockdowns and things like that, and different restrictions that different countries have had, that's been interesting to navigate as well.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. And it's kind of, you've gotten to see a lot more companies' cultural values in a lot of different ways because of COVID too. So that's been kind of eye-opening for that as well. And I feel like maybe it's an American thing, but I feel like people maybe now are more like outspoken about, this is how I feel about COVID, or this is how I feel about this and that related to COVID. Whereas I think before, a lot of businesses have tried to stay away from like those scary subjects instead of facing them up front. I'm starting to see a lot more businesses, especially those independent businesses and women-owned businesses, because hopefully we're getting our voice.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. And I think that the generation of women that are coming up now, they've grown up quite differently to how I grew up, because I'm a little bit but their tolerance for people, for companies to sell them products without any kind of ethics or values behind the company is seeing a real shift to the way we have to operate. And I'm all for that, because I think that for too long, businesses, being in business has such a bad reputation for, people only start businesses because they're money hungry and they don't care who they knock down in business, and it's all cutthroat and all that sort of thing. I don't want to be in a world that operates like that. And I'm really happy to see the shift happening where, one thing I love about women is we are so good at collaborating, and we're seeing that collaboration actually boosts business. And so we don't have to be competing against each other. And I think the other thing that I get really frustrated with is that women are always painted as, catty towards each other, and, don't put two women in the same room together. That's so not true.
I hate that stereotype more than anything, because that is so anti who I am, and personally, and I know that you are as well in speaking with you. It's so frustrating, because all I want to do is help other women, but I've actually seen that it's hard for some women to trust me because I am a woman, because of this catty nature, because, we fight instead of collaborate. And I agree that, like, every single time I do a collaboration like this, or I get on a live and do something with someone else, some other woman in business, it boosts my followers, it boosts my sales, it boosts everything. I mean, women like to see other women collaborating. I think maybe we're just still a little wary of it, but it's coming around, and I love it so much. I'm so glad that you made that point. Yeah, we don't have to be like men. We don't have to be catty. We don't have to be like anything but ourselves.
Yes. Okay. Yes. This is what I think, and this is what I want to encourage, is that, when you learn about business and you do things like a SWOT analysis and a competitor analysis and things like that, it's all about putting yourself on one side of the fence and looking at, the greener grass over the other side. Whereas women traditionally are collaborative creatures. You look back in history and women have always done things together. So where has this come from where we have to be now separated? And why is society, where is this construct coming from that they've got to actually isolate women? Is it because people are a little bit scared that when we get together we are so strong and we are so powerful?
I think so.
I think so too.
I like how you put that. Some people do feel that way. And it is some people, I would like to think that those people are going to be the minority coming up.
I think so. But do you know what? That comes from their own fears.
It does.
And so I hope that they can see that collaboration works, and I hope that they can then adopt it themselves. And because the other thing too about collaboration is when you collaborate with somebody else, that my take on it, whenever I collaborate with anyone, my take on it is that if I'm sitting here like I'm talking to you, and this is unscripted, this is just us talking. Now, there are going to be people out there that can't stand what I'm saying, but might love you. So if people don't like what I'm saying, they're never going to work with me.
Yeah.
So we're not in competition. The people that like what I have to say and like what I stand for and think that I can help them will approach me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as simple as that. And this is where it's like, if you were another business coach, for example, there's no point in sitting there thinking, oh, everyone's going to go to her and not to me. It's not true. The people that will come to me will be the ones that want to work with me.
Mm-hmm. Just for who you are and the things that you were saying. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
so the competition isn't you. You've just got to, it's not the other person you're collaborating with. You've just got to make sure that you're true to who you are.
Yeah. And also, like, in collaborating, you're expanding that group of women to support you and to be around you and, you know, have those conversations that are difficult, because sometimes it's nice to have a conversation with another woman in business that just knows exactly what you're talking about, because other women are not going to have that same experience and understand.
Exactly. Yes.
Awesome. So last thing, just what is the best piece of advice that you could give anyone out there following along this conversation, if they wanted to start their own business other than have a plan in place?
Yeah. This is my favorite piece of advice. If it feels right to you, do not take no for an answer.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Follow your own gut.
That's a good one. That's a really, because we're most of the time we're right. We just
we are. Do you know how many times, you know, raising kids, sometimes they get sick, you go to the emergency room, you know, something's happened and you need medical help straight away. And sometimes the doctors come in and they're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with your child. You can go home. The nurse then comes in and say, if you think there's something wrong with your child, mums know you should not go too far from the hospital because you're probably. Now that's what I want women to take with them, is your intuition is telling you something. You've got to listen to it. Just because, you know, 100 other people don't think that your idea is any good doesn't mean it's not.
Yes, exactly.
You just keep going until you find the person that believes in you and can help you.
I love that. Great piece of last advice. Well, that is all I have, Samantha. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much, Taylor. I love talking with you. It's always such an inspiring conversation with you.
Oh, thank you. Same to you. I love that. Well, I know we'll be working together closely on it coming up. So if anyone wants to contact you, however, if they want your services, why don't you please give your contact information?
Yeah, so you can certainly find me on Instagram, or you can go to my website, which is samanthamorris.fempirecoach.com.au. It's a long one.
That's okay. I can also link it to this video as well.
Brilliant.
I'll do that as well. All right. Well, thank you, Samantha. Have a good rest of your day.
You.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Bye.